Good afternoon, everyone, and a very warm welcome to our first open day event of the year, Uwcsea Admissions Explained. We will get underway in just a few minutes after we give our audience members a chance to join this Zoom webinar successfully. Please bear with us. Thank you for your patience. As I said, we will get started in just a few minutes if you are joining us now. Welcome aboard. Okay, thank you all so much for your patience. I know we will still have some of our audience members joining us in the next few minutes, but a very warm welcome to everyone once again. Welcome to exploring the United World College of Southeast Asia in Singapore and to learning more about our admissions process. My name is Mallika Ramdas and I'm Director of Admissions at the college. Now, just a few weeks ago, we had the great pleasure of welcoming over 1,000 new students to both our campuses. And only a week after that, we were able to see the unmasked smiles of our entire community again, because Singapore relaxed its rules further, no longer requiring the wearing of masks indoors in our indoor learning spaces. So after 2.5 years of exchanging smiles with our eyes, it really feels great. It feels very wonderful to see the faces of our students, our teachers, parents, and all members of our community again. And I think this slide represents some of those wonderful smiles, although these were taken at different times. Now, we've also really enjoyed being able to welcome back families onto campus, which is why this year we decided to offer a hybrid format for our open days. So we have a combination of webinar information events, which will be delivered by our learning leaders to help you understand our learning program within each school section. And then we are also able to offer you the chance to visit our campuses and meet some of our staff, students, and parents, and really get a feel of the school in person. Now, each webinar event will be delivered by our learning leaders, as I mentioned, but they will also include a question and answer time with some of my admissions colleagues and myself. Today's presentation will focus on helping you understand our admissions philosophy and our process. And you will also have an opportunity to ask us any questions you have at the end of the session. Now, throughout the session, you're welcome to place some questions that you may have into that Q&A button. So I'll just give you a moment to identify where that is at the bottom of your Zoom screen. So please feel free to pop in questions there. And those will be answered by my colleagues and myself, either live at the end, or in the case of questions that my colleague can give you a quick link to on our website, we will try and manage some of the questions in that way and refer you to the correct information. Now, finally, I need to tell you that today's presentation will be recorded and will be available on our admissions website, and it will also be sent to everyone who registered for this session. So it will be available to those who may have missed this session, as well as any of you who cannot stay through till the end. So today, my colleague Katie Phantom and I, and Katie is our Deputy Director of Admissions, we will be walking you through different parts of the presentation. And as I mentioned before, today's focus is very much on the college mission and values and how that informs our admissions philosophy and process. But you do have that opportunity to attend the other webinars, which tell you more about the learning program within each of our school sections. Okay, so with that, I'm going to move on to this slide. Now, as you can see, I'm actually starting with the mission of Uwcsea. And indeed, this bold mission is shared by all of the 18 United World Colleges that we are a part of. And I start here because I would like to invite you all to reflect on whether our mission and our values, which I'll show you in a minute, resonate with you and your family, because it's very important to us that you are choosing the United World College of Southeast Asia for the right reasons, because our mission and our values appeal to you and you want to see your child and your family embrace those values and that mission every single day. So coming to our values then, for us, these values are really great ideals, But what we really enjoy is trying to live those values and enact those values in action. So we're really we're expecting those who join our community to embrace these values and try to live them in their daily lives in terms of how we interact with each other, how we treat each other, and how we live our lives. Now, because UWC is driven by our mission, by our values and our educational goal, and those are represented here in circles 1 and 2, we underpin our learning environment with well-being principles and learning principles represented in circle 3 in order to create a holistic learning program represented in circle 4 here, which comprises 5 elements, and you'll hear a lot about those elements within each of the school section learning program webinars. And we do all of that in order to foster the kinds of skills and qualities in the young people we educate, represented in circle 5, so that when they leave us, they can enact that mission in the different ways that they choose to do so. And indeed, we have alumni who have done that in all kinds of interesting and incredible ways. So I'm going to now play you a short video that explains our concept-based K through 12 learning program so that you get an understanding of how it works in practice.
What is concept-based learning? Concept-based learning is centered around big ideas. Ideas so universal that they transfer across place, time, and situation. Content is important, so students must acquire knowledge and skills within each discipline. But the ability to make sense of their knowledge and skills in the world around them is just as important. This doesn't happen by accident. Students are given a variety of experiences so that they develop conceptual understandings, significant ideas that transfer to new contexts. This ensures that they thrive in a complex and unknown future. The Uwcsea concept-based curriculum leads to the IB diploma in grades 11 and 12 and is developed from our mission. Our educational goal is that students embrace challenge and take responsibility for shaping a better world. To do this, they must develop higher order thinking skills and apply their learning to diverse situations. Because our community is so international and diverse, our students bring a wide range of experiences, knowledge, and skills with them when they join us. A concept-based curriculum allows them to connect their prior learning to our experiences at school, as well as develop deep understanding. How do we develop conceptual understanding in our students? Concept-based learning goes hand in hand with learners having a diverse and broad range of experiences. This is achieved through all 5 elements of our holistic learning program: academics, activities, outdoor education, personal and social education, and service. We explicitly plan for concept-based learning by asking conceptual questions and teaching through inquiry, exposing students to content that stretches and deepens their thinking, fostering dialogue and collaboration, asking students to generalize and apply their ideas to new contexts. Together, these experiences support the development of conceptual understanding in our students.
So I hope that helped to give you a sense of how our concept-based curriculum works in practice. And that leads me now to helping you understand how we are informed by all of that you just heard about and had a little taster of in the video, which is why our mission and values, or how our mission and values inform our admissions philosophy. So for us, it's really important to seek students and families who have the potential to align with our mission and values and who are seeking the kind of transformative education that we believe we offer. And in addition to that, we are seeking to build an intentionally diverse college community in which we learn better through our engagement with differences. So this diversity of who we are pushes our thinking, and we believe it helps us grow as individuals and as change makers in our societies. Now, as you can see in this photograph, our students have a lot of fun while learning about themselves, about each other, and about the world around them. I'm now going to hand over to my colleague, Katie, to walk you through how admissions works at the college. Over to you, Katie.
Thank you very much, Mallika. So I know that you must be very curious about how our admissions process works, and we hope to provide you with a little bit more clarity over the next few slides. So I'd like to actually start by letting you know what our admissions process is not based on. We're not based on a first come, first serve. We don't have academic rankings. We don't have quotas, and we do not have a rolling admissions process. So as Mallika has touched on already, what we do base our admissions process on is the mission. It is a mission-driven selection process which mirrors our holistic learning program. So let's explore this in a little bit more detail. So like many schools, here at Uwcsea SEA, we do have entry criteria, and this is what ours looks like. So we look at a student's approaches to learning. This is probably one of the most important areas that we look at in a student's application. Is the student excited about coming to school? Are they engaged in their learning? We do look at attainment as well, the academic attainment. But though we're not a selective school, an academically selective school, we do have a rigorous program here. So we need to ensure that the students thrive within our programs. So we typically look for students who are achieving between the middle and the upper bands within their current school's attainment levels. We also look at interests and involvements. Again, a very important part of a student's application for us. Will a student take advantage of all the options and opportunities that they have available when they are enrolled with us? Will they look to challenge themselves? Will they look to take risks and grow within our program? And for students who are applying for middle school and high school, do they have an understanding of us, of Uwcsea SEA, and an appreciation of our values and our guiding statements? And also, do they have the appreciation and potential to engage with our mission? Now, for our English language learners, we are delighted to share with you today that we have a new development for applicants who are applying for our middle school and our primary school for 2023-24. So we'd like to inform you that we are no longer assessing our primary and our middle school students for their English levels, neither through a virtual assessment nor through an in-person assessment. We have decided that we were moving towards a review process, not an assessment process, in order not to burden the students any further with more assessments. So we will continue to carefully review all of our applications for our English language learners, and we do strongly encourage our families to look at our EAL section on our website in order to get a little bit more guidelines into the levels of English that we will require our students to have. And my colleague Kate, I think now will be popping in a link to that section of the website in our chat. So just to go into a little bit more detail. So for our infant school students, our K1, K2 and grade 1, we do require the students to be able to share some of their ideas in English without significant support. And for our grade 1 applicants, they will have a basic, or they should have a basic literacy level in reading and writing in order to apply to UWC. For our junior school students, our grade 2, 3, 4 and 5 students, we do require our students to have 2 or more years of English medium instruction schooling or similar. And for our grade 4 and grade 5 students, typically the students will have 3 or more years of English medium instruction schooling. And then for our middle school students, grade 6, 7 and 8, we do require our students to have strong oral language fluency And again, typically 3 or more years of English medium instruction schooling. And for our high school students, grade 9, grade 10, and grade 11, the students will need to have sufficient academic English language proficiency in order to access our learning program. And for our high school students, we will continue to offer our EAL assessment as part of their process for the high school students. So what do we consider when we're looking through all of the applications we receive? So we look at school reports. Again, typically we're looking at the approaches to learning rather than the attainment levels. We look at the assessments. So for students who come in for an assessment, we do look at the outcome of their process. So for our K1 and K2 students, we do invite them in for a meet and play sessions. And for students who may have learning needs, they may be coming in for a learning needs assessment. The student statement for students applying for grade 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and 11, so middle school and high school, our students will complete a student statement. And it's probably one of the most interesting parts of the application process that we look at when we're reviewing applications. And I just want to do a top tip for parents at this stage. This student statement needs to be handwritten by the students. It needs to be authentic and really in the student's own words. So parents, this is a hands-off moment for you. Please leave this for the students to complete. And then we look at any other information that might be pertinent to the student's application. Tell us why you're interested in applying to us. What's exciting you about your application to UWC-SEA? And then what do we consider for our grade 9, 10, and 11 students? So these are our high school applicants. And we're really looking at a little bit more in-depth consideration, which includes the following. So their intellectual motivation, their active commitment, their social competence, their resilience, and their personal integrity, and also their motivation for applying for UWC-SEA. And how do we look for this? So we offer our students in the high school that are applying to the high school a virtual immersion program. Our high school student selection process is aligned to the mission and was informed by how our UWC-SEA scholars around the world are chosen. It is designed to be both an holistic program and an immersive experience where the applicants get the chance to immerse themselves and interact with our high school facilitators, our academic staff, and also our admissions staff as well. So one important change to our process for our VIPs, our virtual immersion programs for this year, is that for re-applicants that are considering reapplying again, and if you are an English language learner, your EAL assessment will take place before we invite you in for the virtual immersion program. We need to ensure that the student has the correct English levels in order to be able to access our high school programs. We also have interviews for all of our students. So with a member of our academic team, which could be one of our principals, our vice principal, or a head of grade. And for our boarding applicants, it will be with a member of our boarding team, our director of boarding, or a boarding house parent. And then we have the group interaction and discussion forum, which will be with our admissions staff and our high school facilitators. And for our grade 11 applicants, if they are choosing a language other than English, we will require a little bit more information on their language levels and abilities. And again, for grade 11 students, if they're applying for music, art, or design technology, we will require a little bit of further information in order to ensure that they're able to access the higher level or standard level for their IB choices. So I'd like to hand back over to Mallika, who will talk to you a little bit more about crafting our community. Thank you, Mallika.
Thanks, Katie. Okay, so Katie's just run through what our entry criteria look like. and what are the different elements of an application that we consider and review carefully as part of the review process. So once we are satisfied that your child has met our entry criteria, then they become part of what we call our eligible pool. And from that eligible pool of applicants, it is our difficult task to select students to make offers to. When we're doing that, we ask ourselves these two questions. Are we crafting a community that is as diverse as it can possibly be? And secondly, are we crafting a community that is as inclusive as we can responsibly be? And what I mean by that is that when we are trying to be as inclusive as possible, we want to make sure that every student who comes into the college has the support that they may need, whether that's for English language development, whether that's for supporting their learning needs or their social emotional needs, or whatever it is. So diversity and being as inclusive as we can be are major considerations when we try to craft our community of incoming new students. Now, I've spoken about diversity, and I want to unpack that a little bit more for you in terms of what we mean. A lot of people jump to the conclusion that diversity is simply nationality. And I want to dispel that assumption, if it is one, by showing you all the different kinds of diversity that we actually consider. So here are some of the many things that we're looking at. We're looking at a student's academic interests. We're looking at the range of personalities that students have. We're looking at different countries that they've lived in, at the cultural diversity that they bring. We're looking at learning needs as a type of diversity. We're looking at their educational history. We're looking at talents and skills, ethnicities, gender identities, extracurricular activities that students have engaged in and wish to pursue when they get here. Economic diversity. We're looking at religious backgrounds, nationality backgrounds, family backgrounds, and the linguistic profile of a student, among other things. So those are some of the different considerations that we keep in mind when we're thinking about how we can complement our current student body when we have the opportunity to bring in additional new students to replace leaving students from the college. So I'm now going to move on to explain a little bit more how we make offers from the big pool of students of applicants who have met our entry criteria to the smaller pool, unfortunately smaller pool, and that is smaller because we are restricted in the number of spaces that we have available in any one year. So one of our very big considerations there is the types of diversity, which I just outlined. The other one is that we do pay attention to what we are calling demographic considerations. And that's things like whether or not a student already has a sibling at the college, whether the applicant has an alumni connection to the college, such as a parent who's attended the school, whether they are returning students, whether they are reapplicants. We definitely pay attention to students who weren't successful in a previous application cycle and who are giving it another go because their interest has either grown or remains as strong as it was originally in becoming a student at UWC. And then for boarding students, an additional important criteria is what does our boarding space availability look like? There are additional rooming considerations. And because boarding is kind of a microcosm, a smaller community within a larger college community, we have to look even more closely at the diversity considerations and the demographic considerations there. Typically, we do get 2 to 3 applications per place. And that explains why we have to go from a bigger pool of eligible applicants to a smaller pool. And one of the questions that is often on parents' minds and can be a source of some frustration, and we understand that, is that because your child may have met our entry criteria, you're wondering sometimes, well, why aren't they automatically getting an offer? Well, it's because we do typically have more applicants than the number of places. And so we have to make some very difficult decisions which are informed by those diversity considerations and demographic considerations that I mentioned. So hopefully that gives you some clarity about that. Okay, so I would now like to give you a sense of how many spaces we anticipate filling for entry in August 2023. I want to make sure that everyone understands that what we're showing you in this slide and the next one are merely an anticipation or a prediction of the number of spaces that we may have available on each campus. This is likely to change in the course of this year, because right now we can simply estimate the number of students who may withdraw from our current community. We really do not have exact numbers. And so it's important for families to understand that these are all tentative numbers that you're seeing. But having said that, this is what we anticipate for the Dover campus. As you can see, we are anticipating having spaces from K1 up to grade 11, with one exception, and that is kindergarten 2 or K2. And that is because we don't actually open applications for K2 on our Dover campus. We do, however, open K2 for applications, and there are spaces available at our East campus, which I will show you in a minute. Now, the reason we don't open K2 on Dover is because we typically have very, very few K1 leavers. And also, we do not add a new class section on the Dover campus in K2. So families who have a K2 eligible child who are interested in applying to Dover can request their child's name to be placed on a register of interest. And we will go to that if any spaces arise, but typically we won't be able to do that until May or June. So quite late in the admission cycle, because it's only at that point that we know if we have any leavers. We have to follow a lot of priorities and considerations because it's quite unusual to have more than just a very small number of spaces open up. And we will give strong priority to families, to children who have siblings already at the college. And often we will have to base that on how many years a sibling has already been at the college. So we can give you more information about that if K2 is a particular interest of yours at the Dover campus. So I'm going to now move on to our East campus availability for August 2023. And I'm very excited to be able to share with you that at our East campus, we are very excited that we are growing our middle school. So for many years, we had a very small number of places available for grades 7 and 8 in our middle school. And that's because we did not add new class sections to those two grades. That is changing for August 2023. So you can look forward to more space availability in our East Middle School section. Now, you will notice that grades 3 and grades 5, however, are fairly small numbers, and that is because those grades do not add a new class section. And so we are, in fact, dependent on the number of withdrawals we get from our current community. So again, that's a rough estimate of the number of places that we may have available. You will notice that we have not put a specific number on boarding availability. We will address that in the question and answer period, so stay tuned for that. Okay, so with that, I am now going to hand back to Katie to talk you through the actual application process and our admissions timelines.
Thank you, Mallika. So now you have all the information about what we look for when you're applying. So this is a little bit more information about how to apply. So when you are ready to apply, you can do so via our online application form. Please go to our website and you will see the To Apply button. And it's at this point that you need to make a decision about what kind of application form you are going to complete. Will it be a single campus, so either Dover application or an East application? Or if you would like to apply to both campuses, both East and Dover, and in that case, it will be a dual campus application. If you do decide to apply dual, be really sure that you are happy to accept a place at either campus as the campus that you will receive an offer from is decided at the point of offer. And for our boarding applicants, your application will automatically be a dual campus application, as we consider boarding applicants for both campuses as we craft our diverse boarding communities. So school reports, we do require 2 to 3 years of school reports, and please get them translated if they aren't in English. And for applicants that are applying to grade 6 through to grade 11, the student statement. And again, parents, remember, this is in the student's own handwriting, the student's own word. So please leave them to complete this section of the application. And then any other supporting information which is relevant to your application. So if your child has an educational psychologist report or a speech therapist report, we do require you to submit that as part of the application process. And last but not least, the application fee to complete the submission for your application. So what can you expect from us, your admissions department, through this process? So once you have submitted your application, you will receive by email an application acknowledgement to confirm that we have received your application. You will also receive an outcome of your application review. So if we require a little bit more information from you, we will reach out to you to get your information, and then we'll give you the outcome of that review to let you know that your child is now in the applicant pool. And then hopefully we'll be in a position to make you an offer. If we can't make an offer, we'll at least give you an update of where your application is. And then, of course, it goes without saying that we will support you all the way through your admissions process. Please reach out to your admissions officer and they'll be able to provide you with more information. So this just gives you a little bit more information about our timeline, our application and offer timeline. So as you can see, on the 1st of September, we opened for applications for the August 2023 start. In red, you will see 2 application deadline dates, the first one being the 4th of November, and the second application deadline date is the 3rd of February. And we have 2 offer rounds for the August start date. We'll go into a little bit more detail now. So for our kindergarten to grade 8 offers for the August start, we have a round 1 offer, which will be in December, but you must apply by the 4th of November. We have a round 2 offer date, which is in March of 2023. And you will need to make sure that you apply by the 3rd of February to be considered for that round 2 offer. If for any reason we're unable to make an offer in the December round, the first round offer, your application will naturally flow through to the second round offer date in March. And then we'll continue to make offers as we go through, as soon as we know we have more spaces that are available. And for students who may require English support or learning support, these offers are typically considered in our round 2 offer round in March, when we have a little bit more clarity of how many spaces we'll have available. And then for our high school and boarding offers for the August start. So high school is from grades 9 to 11, and all of our boarding offers for grade 8 to grade 11. We have a round 1 offer process in January of 2023. The application deadline for that offer round will be the 4th of November. And our second offer round will be in March of 2023. And again, you'll need to apply by the 3rd of February to be part of that second offer round. If we're not able to offer you a place in our round 1, your application again will flow through to the second offer round in March. And then we'll continue to make offers if and when we have further students who withdraw from the college. So we do have a second entry point for our students applying for kindergarten to grade 8. and that is for a term 2 start, so January 2024. We typically make offers mid to late October. And for these spaces for the January start, they are completely dependent on leaver places. So Mallika, over to you.
Thank you, Katie. So with that, I would like to introduce you, at least virtually for today, to our wonderful admissions team represented here on this photograph. These are all of my colleagues across both our campuses at East and Dover, barring one who unfortunately has fractured her foot and is in fact our admissions officer who's coordinating all of these open days. So we will have a revised photograph when she's better and able to join us again. What I want to say is that the smiles are not just for this photograph. I really have the privilege of working with an incredible group of colleagues who make it their business to support families at every step along their way into the college or through their application process. When you apply, you will be assigned an admissions officer, and it will be that officer who will support you through your application process. Now, if you choose to apply as a dual campus applicant, that is to both campuses, you will be assigned one admissions officer who will look after your applications to both campuses. And likewise, if you are applying as a boarding applicant, you will be assigned to our boarding admissions officer to see you through your process. And please feel free to call to book a virtual meeting with an admissions officer. You can also book a campus tour online on our website. And for those of you who have signed up to come to our in-person open days, which are happening beginning next week, we of course very much look forward to seeing you on campus as well. We are now going to move into the question and answer period of this session. So we will invite a few of our other colleagues in the admissions team to join us. So they will appear in a moment. Here they are now. And I will do some quick introductions, after which I will hand over to Katie to be the facilitator for this part of our program. So with us now, so in addition to myself and Katie, who I already introduced, we've got our admissions managers on both our campuses. So Maria Wee is our admissions manager on our Dover campus, and Ashu Garg is our admissions manager on our East campus. And then we've also got Caitlin Go, who is our boarding admissions officer. So the five of us will now be happy to respond to some of the questions that have come in. We'll try and get through as many as we can in the next 20 to 30 minutes, which is the amount of time we have left. So over to you, Katie, for our first question.
Thank you very much, Mallika. So I'd like to pose this first question to Ashu. One of our parents is asking, what kind of assessment my child would have if they're applying for K1? Do they have an interview for K1?
Thank you, Katie, and good afternoon to everyone who's attending today. For K1, we invite all applicants who are based in Singapore to come into our school, and it's called a meet and play observational session. So all K1s will be invited to the campus if they are based in Singapore, whether it's they've applied for East or whether they've applied for Dover. This is a similar concept. We will actually have a classroom simulation for them where they will interact with our teachers, with other candidates who are also present for that meet and play session. And then the outcome of that will be made known to the parents. We will not do individual interviews if that's what you're looking for. And for those students who are, or those applicants who are applying from overseas, we will be contacting their current schools for some additional information. That's how we will be progressing with overseas applicants. We obviously don't expect them to fly down here to Singapore to join that assessment. I hope that answers your questions. Maria, would you like to add anything else?
Yes, I wish to. Thank you, Ashu, and thank you for all for participating in this afternoon session. just to add on to what Ashu has mentioned, just to inform the parents who are based in Singapore, for those children invited to come in for the meet and play session is only for a 45-minute session. And it's generally we have a group of not more than 12 students in a session, and it's conducted usually in the afternoons. Thank you.
Thank you very much, both of you. Maria, I wonder if I can just stay with you for 1 second. One question that we have is that a family is applying from a kindergarten that provides both English and Chinese reports. Will we require the Chinese reports translated? I think it's just the Chinese language section of the report that they're asking about.
Maria, I think you're on mute, dear.
Okay, thanks, Katie. As mentioned in the earlier part of the presentation, Katie did mention about any of the reports which are not in English. We would appreciate if those can be translated, because if we do need staff for further review, then at least those reports are in English for them to really comprehend the profile of your child's progress in the reports and also at the current school. So if that can be done, that will be greatly appreciated. Thank you.
Thank you, Maria. And I have a question for you, Mallika. So if an applicant is not under an English medium schooling, but has extensive private English tutoring, would we consider the student like this with this profile?
That's a great question. Thank you. Yes, we will consider a student with that sort of profile. As Katie mentioned before, each student's application will go through a very thorough review. And so in a case where there isn't a complete match with our guidelines, we will essentially have that application reviewed by our EAL coordinator of the school section in question. We may reach out to the student's English language teacher or tutor for additional information. In fact, it's highly likely that we would do that. And in some cases, our EAL coordinators might want to follow up and get even more information. Sometimes they may wish to speak to a current teacher. That could happen. So we will investigate and we will get as much information as we need in order to determine whether the child is ready to thrive in our learning environment.
Thank you very much, Mallika. And a question for Caitlin. I know that we touched on boarding places that are available for August. I wonder whether you can give us an approximation of what those numbers might be for August 2023.
Sure, Katie. Thank you. So so from the number of anticipated spaces that you have seen from Mallika's chart, a small percentage of those places will be allocated to boarding for boarding applicants. So we do not have a definite number of boarding places to offer each year because it really depends on the movement of the movements in the boarding house year by year. So for example, we have the grade 12s that graduate from the boarding house and students moving up one grade. We may have some students who withdraw from boarding. So based on that, we will get the numbers year by year. But typically, we'll be looking at a very rough estimate of about 5 to 10 places in grade 8 and possibly about 15 to 25 places for each of the high school years. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. And just to stay with you, Caitlin, we have another boarding question for you. So we have a family that's applying for boarding for the high school. And they just wanted to know approximately when the assessment process will be for the student that is applying for boarding.
Okay, so if you're applying for a high school boarding place, so basically your child will go through the same process, the same the virtual immersion program or any English testing if required, just like any day applicant. Just that for the interview part of the assessment, your child will be interviewed by a boarding house parent. Does that answer the question? I hope so.
Perhaps I can add something there.
Yes.
And I'll just emphasize that we do call it a virtual immersion program because
Yes.
it is conducted virtually. And so I want to reassure families who are overseas that the high school process happens entirely virtually. So you do not have to travel to Singapore in order for your child to be interviewed as part of their high school or boarding application process. And that also applies to boarding interviews. We do have a boarding interview for students who are applying to grade 8 as boarding applicants. Those will also be conducted virtually. Now, if you choose to come to Singapore for a campus tour or a boarding tour, then of course you're most welcome to do that, but we do not require you to do so.
Thank you, Mallika and Caitlin. Ashu, quick question for you. Does an application have to come with recommendations from current teachers?
Absolutely not. We do not require recommendations. It's not a compulsory part of the documents that you need to upload with your application. However, if a child is leaving their current school and relocating to Singapore from another country and the school is able to give a recommendation, that's absolutely fine. But it is not something that we absolutely need for every applicant. So it's really up to the families. We really don't want to bother the schools with recommendation letters, etc. So if you're in Singapore and you're looking to transfer to UWC, please don't ask them for transfer recommendation letters. Thank you.
I'm sorry, may I add something as well?
Go ahead.
What I wanted to say is we do ask all applicants for to designate a teacher name and contact information, and that is because depending on what additional information we may need when we review an application, sometimes we do reach out to the current teacher. And in the case of boarding applicants, we ask specifically that that teacher is somebody who has known the student in a pastoral capacity. So if they are already a boarding student, then that person should be someone who's perhaps a head of boarding or a dorm parent or something like that. But if it's a day student, we do ask for a teacher who has known the student in not just academically, but also in terms of their overall kind of how they're doing in their current context. So ideally, somebody like a head of grade or a pastoral tutor, a homeroom teacher, a mentor, or a class teacher for younger years. Thank you.
Thank you, Mallika. Maria, we have a question about the availability of reports. So for this family who are looking at K1, their reports won't be available before the first application deadline. Do we have any advice about when this family should be submitting their application?
Right. It is part of the application process that all applications must be accompanied with school report. But nevertheless, we do want to know the reason why. Could it be a reason that the child has just started schooling? And if that is the case, then we would then possibly contact the family to say, like, we will need to look at the first set of reports and then proceed with the application. Now, having said that, I did mention about the meet and play session. So we do have the meet and play session not only conducted in the term 1, so we do have continual sets of dates of meet and play sessions throughout the admissions process. So nevertheless, it may be a situation whereby we do need to look at the first set of reports, and therefore the application or the child may need to come in for the meet and play session upon receipt of those reports for the review. So that will be an ideal, but the parent is most welcome to contact the family, to contact the school or the admissions officer if you are assigned to one that you know of, to have a further conversation. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Maria. Ashley, a very quick question for you. We have a family that is interested for this January 2023. Is that option to apply for this January 2023 still open to them?
I'm sorry, unfortunately not. We closed applications for January, vacancies for January on the 1st of August. So we are not accepting any more applications. But again, January places are very few and limited to leavers only. So we do have a large pool of applicants who had applied prior to 1st of August. And we will be considering any vacancies, offering those applicants from, selecting those applicants to then fill up those vacancies for January. So please apply for August 2023. I'm sorry, we can't accept your application for January. Thank you.
Thank you, Ashu. And Mallika, we have a family that are interested in our scholarship programs for grade 11. I wonder whether you could give a little bit more information and advice for this family.
Certainly. United World College of Southeast Asia does not offer scholarships directly to students applying to us as direct applicants through our normal application process. So the only scholarships we offer are for students who are coming through their United World College national committees. And on our website, we do have a link to information about how that process works. So students can apply to United World Colleges through their national committees if they have financial need and want to be considered for scholarships. But that is a very different route, and you have to choose whether you're applying through that route or directly to us. So if you're applying directly to us through the application process that we described today, that is intended for fee-paying students who can afford to pay the full fees at our college. So I hope that clarifies how scholarships work.
Thank you very much, Mallika. And Ashu, we have a family that are really wanting to apply for 2023, but a little bit worried that their circumstances might change and they may not be able to apply to arrive in Singapore until 2024. Can their application be deferred or do they need to reapply?
Thank you. It's a very good question. Something that we do get asked quite often. So obviously, if you're relocating from overseas, you can't be absolutely sure of your relocation date. You can apply for August 2023. But at the point of once you know, or if you're getting to know that your application, that you will not be in Singapore over the summer in time to join in August 2023, you can let us know and we can change your application for a January entry for the vacancies that I mentioned in my earlier answer. But having said that, we cannot defer an offer to a later start for another term. We will have to close or cancel that acceptance if you've been offered a place, and your application will go back in the pool if you so want it, and then we will consider it again for vacancies in January. I hope that answers the question. Mallika, do you want to add something?
I just want to add a couple of things. So we do have the ability to consider an applicant for January, but only if they are applying for kindergarten through grade 8. So that is an important caveat to what Ashu just explained. We cannot defer applications to a future term or to another year of entry. So in that case, the family will need to reapply. I think another important point I want to make, and we do spell this out every time we make an offer of admission, which is that once you've accepted and paid for the acceptance fees as part of an offer of admission, if you subsequently if your plans change, unfortunately, those fees are non-refundable at that point and will be forfeited, even if the change in your plans is due to, forces beyond your control, like a company changing its plans to relocate you or something like that. So I think that's an important piece to keep in mind.
And there's one more part to this question, actually. We do ask you in the application form, are you able to commit to an early offer? So this question is asked specifically for the first round. If you are not able to commit to that first round of offers, you can say no in that question. So your application will be considered only in the second round, or that is for March. But if you're not sure, around March also, when we make offers or when you can reach out to your admissions officer and let them know, and we can then maybe change the application for a January 2024 entry. I hope that should sum it up, really. Thank you.
Very much. Thank you both. We've had quite a few questions, Mallika. I'd like to pose this one to you. Quite a few questions, just clarifying approximately how many applications we do get into K1 each year. I think families are just a little nervous about maybe the competition that there is getting a place in K1. I wonder whether you can talk to that a little bit.
Sure. So there's good news and bad news. So I'll start with the good news. And the good news is that K1 is actually the grade where we have the maximum number of places available, namely 88. Now, we do try our best to think about balancing genders in that grade, and actually in every grade to the extent that we can. We are very strict about not being able to accept more than exactly 88 little ones into that first K1 cohort. So the good news is it is the grade with the maximum number of spaces available. The slightly less good news is that, like every other grade, typically, now we can't predict what's going to happen this year, but typically we do get 2 to 3 applications per space available. So that's just something that families have to keep in mind. I will say that the grade that we often find is in highest demand is actually grade 1, and that is a grade where we do get high demand because quite often families are making the decision to move their young child from a smaller school environment to so-called big school at that point. So that is the grade where actually it's usually more like 4 to 5 applications per place rather than 2 to 3 applications per place. So I hope that answers the question.
Thank you very much, Mallika. Yes, so lots of people saying thank you, thank you. Maria, a couple of questions on the meet and play sessions that we have. Just asking about dates. When do we hold them, and does a family choose the dates, or do we give the dates to the family?
Okay, we have several dates for the meet and play at both campuses, and it's usually the case whereby it's practically every week that we have a session. So it all depends at the time of when the parent put in an application. Once the application is being reviewed, then we would like to just allocate the child for the meet and play session as soon as possible. As Mallika did mention, we tend to get 2 to 3 applications for K1. So we would like to complete the process of the K1 applications for the meet and play sessions so that we will know how many applicants have met the eligibility and to remain in the pool for consideration when offers are being made. So we do have sessions, and just to be honest with you, the first session will be starting on the 29th of September, and it'll be running through up till possibly until the end of term 2. And if there are late applicants that's coming in, and if the infant teachers are able to allocate additional dates in term 3, then obviously we would definitely do so. Now, having said that, it all depends on also if you feel that there is a reason, a very good reason that you may not be in Singapore and you are traveling, and then obviously you are back in Singapore in term 2, although your applications have met the deadline of the first round of offers, we will accommodate your request. Because at the end of the day, we are making up 88 places for K1 at both campuses, and we do not fill up the 100% of the 88 places in round 1. So your child, if he or she meets their admissions criteria and eligibility, will obviously be considered for even round 2. I hope that answers the question.
Thank you very much, Maria. Mallika, we have a sort of a two-pronged question to answer to this question. So we have a family that is currently in a different academic timetable, they're January to December. So just asking, can they apply for January only, or do they have to apply for August and their application rolls over to January? And when would they get an indication of their offer if they are applying for January start?
Sure. So the answer is yes, you can choose to apply just for January as long as your child is age eligible for grades K through 8. We did mention previously that we do not currently offer a mid-year entry for high school students. So, so yes, it is possible to apply just for January. The one thing I would remind the family about is that our January space availability is quite limited, and it is limited because we can only fill the number of spaces that become available because of withdrawals from our current community. So we have no way in which we can anticipate how many that might be. And I'm sorry, I lost track of the second part of the question. When will they know?
Okay. When will they know?
Okay, so if you have applied for January, we typically make our January offers in October. So that is when you will hear the outcome of the application and whether you've been successful in being offered a place for a January start.
Lovely. Thank you very much, Mallika. And Ashu, a quick question about student passes or immigration. Does the student need to have their pass in place before they apply to the college? And if they need a student pass, when will that be done?
Thank you. Good question again. So if you're residing in Singapore, yes, you would already have access to a dependent pass, or you may be a Singapore resident, so you may have a PR for your child, re-entry permit. So yes, please apply with those. If you are currently on an LTVP, especially for K1, K2s, we will help you get that student pass if your child is offered a place, but closer to June. So that is when the process starts. We don't start that process earlier. Obviously, if you're joining us in January, it will be in December. If you're joining us in August, we start that process in June. If you're residing overseas, obviously, we don't expect you to wait till you get an employment pass or a dependent pass for your child and then apply to us. Please submit the application without the passes. There is a question that is asked, are you residing in Singapore or not? So obviously that kind of gives you the hint that if you're not, then the pass is not required. I think, Mallika, you may want to talk about this a little bit more, maybe for Singapore citizens.
Actually, I want to add something specifically for the student pass situation. So if a student is already in Singapore and attending another school on a student pass, it is important to know that when they, if they're successful in getting a place at Uwcsea, they will need to apply for a new student pass because those are attached to the institution that the child is attending. And so again, but you don't have to, you can't have that pass in place at the time you start the application to us. So you can go ahead and apply and meet our application deadlines, knowing that we will help you with that student pass process when the time comes. Ashu mentioned, would I like to add something specifically concerning Singapore citizenship, and I'm happy to do that. So we do have very tight restrictions on which Singapore citizens' applications we can even consider. And we have a very detailed web page about this, which I think my colleague Kate is putting into the responses for anyone asking about that. So I would encourage families to read that very carefully. This would also apply. We really want to urge families who are in the process of applying for Singapore citizenship to also read that information. So it's not just relevant for people who are already Singapore citizens, but also for people who are applying, who are in the process of applying, or even planning to apply for Singapore citizenship. we strongly encourage you to read that information. We can only accept applications from a very small number of eligible based on certain eligibility criteria, which is our school's policy. And the reason for all of this is that all foreign system schools or international schools are required to manage the enrollment of Singaporeans at our schools very carefully. They do require what's called an MOE, Ministry of Education waiver, in order to attend an international school. And so in order to manage that, we have had to arrive at the policies that we currently have. Those are reviewed periodically, but I do not foresee any change for entry in 2023-24 at this point. Thank
Sorry,
you.
Mallika, can I add something about these Singaporean applications?
Please.
This is the policy that's based, is our school's policy. So it is not MOE's policy. So it does not stop the family of applying at other international schools.
Yes, thank you for clarifying that, Maria.
And Caitlin, we have another boarding query for you. So this family would just like to know, what is the offer, the first offer round for a grade 8 boarding applicant?
Thank you, Katie. All right, so for all the boarding applicants, they will have to go through a boarding interview with our Director of Residential Life or with one of our house parents. And that includes the grade 8 boarding applicants as well. So due to the time required to organize all these interviews and to review them, the offers for grade 8 boarders will be following the high school offer round. So that will be in January instead of in December with the day offers. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Caitlin. And Ashu, we have a parent who is coming into Singapore, relocating to Singapore. Their company is very flexible about the timeline of their move to Singapore. Are we also flexible about when we can take entry for a student into the college?
No, we are not flexible in that. We have 2 points of entry, as Mallika said. One is August, which is our main intake for the start of the academic year. And then the second entry point for K1 through to grade 8 is in January, which is based on current student withdrawals. So those would be the 2 entry points that we would consider.
Wonderful. Thank you very much, Ashu. Mallika, I'm probably going to get to my last question now. We've had a lot of families that are asking, how do they ask more questions? Where can we get more information? Can I speak to admissions officer? Can I come for a tour? I wonder whether you could give a little bit more information.
Absolutely, very happy to. So there are various ways in which you can get more information and connect with us. Let me start by ways in which you can contact the admissions office. We have an email address. If this is a first inquiry, your email will be routed through to someone who can respond to your questions. I would just ask that you be a little patient, particularly over this next month. We have a number of open days and we expect the volume of inquiries to be quite high, but rest assured we will get back to you on your queries. So feel free to email. You can also call the admissions office and we will connect you with someone. We do have the opportunity to connect for a one-on-one virtual meeting, which you can book online on our website. So those are at certain times, and you will be able to connect with an admissions officer in our team. That person will not necessarily end up being your admissions officer, but can still answer your questions during that meeting. And we also have the opportunity to book an on-campus tour again through our website. So those are arranged at on certain days at certain times. And we do organize those by school section that you're interested in for your child. More immediately, we do have a series of open days. As you know, because you're on this webinar, you've had the opportunity to register for those. We do have on-campus open days coming up. And most of those are still open for you to register. I'm afraid we have had to close a couple of those that have been in very high demand because we simply cannot cope with bigger numbers. But those opportunities are available. So I hope that addresses the family's question.
Thank you, Mallika. And we've received in the region of about 180 questions. So thank you, everybody, for some fantastic questions. I'm sorry that we're not able to answer everything. And I'd just like to hand back to Mallika to finish this session.
Thanks, Katie. Again, in deep appreciation to all of you who are on this call, on the webinar today. We know that you have given up precious time to connect with us, to learn more about the college and the opportunities for your children, and specifically learn more about our admissions philosophy and process. And we are very, very appreciative of your interest. So thank you very much. We look forward to continuing the connection. And if you have signed up to come to one of our on-campus open days, we look forward to seeing you soon. Thank you very much and enjoy the rest of your day wherever you are. Goodbye.